Hi, and welcome to another episode of Head in the Clouds Working Wise. My name is Alicia, and today I'm here with Angelo Briccetti. He's going to be taking us through the approval agent. And Angelo is a PM at Microsoft. So in the approval agent, he's going to be taking us through timesheets, expenses, and material approvals. So Angelo, it's a pleasure having you here today, and we're eager to see what you have for us.
Thank you. Happy to be here, Alicia. And thank you for the introduction. As Alicia mentioned, we're talking about approvals, specifically in project operations. So for those of you who are maybe unfamiliar or less familiar with project operations, is a professional services automation tool, sort of doing end-to-end processes, really anyone doing project-based work, starting with the sort of contracting, project management, and then we have built-in integration to our finance and operations platform where you can handle revenue recognition, accounting, all of those back-end finance functions as well. Everything that we're showing you today is on the data side of the product. And as Alicia mentioned, we'll go with time, material, and expense submissions.
So as you're opening up the application, I just want to call out to the audience that we're talking about project operations. So inside of D365 Finance and Supply Chain, there's project management and accounting. And then there's also another product called project operations. And project operation actually feeds data to and from D365 Finance and Supply Chain. Inside of D365 Finance and Supply Chain, the project management and accounting module is used with project operations because it actually is where the data is fed into for financial information. So if you're using project management and accounting today, these approval processes are not specifically for you. However, if you're using project operations, which again feeds into project management and accounting, then this would be ideal for you to take a look at. So Angelo, I'm eager to see it.
Yeah, let's go through it. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And we're going to start by just going through the normal process of submitting and approving time and see what the outcome is. So here in my time entry stage, I can create a new time entry on the warehouse upgrade project, starting with our planning task, which as you can see starts on February 2nd. And then I will go ahead, save that, and submit it. So team members are doing this. I'm doing work on a project, and then I'm logging my time and submitting my time. Now I'm sort of going to take my team member hat off and put my project manager hat on. In this project, I'm playing both roles. But now we go to approvals, and we'll show time entries for approval. And you can see the warehouse upgrade task of planning project is here for my approval. This is what I just submitted. And when I go ahead and approve this time entry, it says it's been processed for approvals. And then we're going to go ahead and go to the project. And what we'll see is that actual was created. We're only going to have a cost actual right now because I don't have a contract associated with this project. But when the approval happens, an actual is created. If I did have a time and material contract set up on this project, I'd get both the cost and then the unbilled sales actuals, which can be billed to a customer. If I don't have that set up, we're just seeing cost. But again, the approvals is the trigger for those actuals being created. And it's a very important setup. There's a lot of problems with making mistakes in submissions and approvals, and making a correction after the fact is going to take a lot more time than just getting it right the first time. Additionally, project managers may have several projects that they're in charge of, each of which could have hundreds of team members. The number of approvals that they have to go through in a week could easily enter the thousands. And for many of our customers doing large projects, it frequently does enter the thousands per project, even per week. There isn't enough time in the week for a project manager to go through and strictly look through every single one and make sure that they are meeting the standards that are expected by the business. So frequently what happens is they're either approving them all, they're only reviewing a subset, and then when corrections happen, they're doing them on the back end. Hopefully it doesn't happen too often, but even once is too often with some of these processes. So what the approvals agent is about is it allows first to set up a policy for their approvals. So it can be natural language text document like I've got here, where they can write out these are the rules that are going to need to be followed for any submission to be approved. You can see some of the examples. The revenue of time submitted is 0. So if there's no sales price on the submission and it's going to be billed to a customer as 0, that would violate that rule. Time entry submitted on a non-working day. Perhaps I was going in and clicked the wrong button and clicked Saturday instead of Friday and submitted my time. That's going to flag this rule here. This is totally customizable, put together by the customer to decide what things are important. And when time is submitted, back here and submit some more time. Collection of data from the time submission. Again, this works for material and expense, but I'll just explain time and then show material and expense on the back end. There's a collection of data, a set of data is collected from what was submitted. For example, I have 1 hour on this project, this task. I'm going to go ahead and submit it. And then there's a Power Automate flow, which runs in the background. That Power Automate flow will grab the relevant data about the submission, send it to Copilot Studio to the agent, and then the agent will get the policy document that's relevant for the type of submission, because there's separate policy documents for time, material, and expense submissions, and it will compare the two. It will say, here's the submission and data about the submission, here's the set of rules that the business has decided are relevant for this type of submission. Does this submission meet these rules? If yes, it's going to come back with a decision of this entry is ready for approval. If no, it's going to come back with a decision of needs review, and it will also list out any reason why review is needed on the record. So I just submitted this, and we'll come back and refresh here. We'll see that it has been submitted. And now if I go to this approvals agent page, it's going to take a second for this to go through. Here we go. So as you can see, the agent has now classified this submission as needs review. And the reason it was classified as needs review is because the revenue of time submitted is 0 and the time was logged as non-billable. Both of those are because, as I mentioned before, I don't have a contract set up on this project. If I had set up the contract, it would then therefore have that sales price and that sales amount and be marked as ready for approval, unless, of course, there was a different mistake. So overall, the agent itself is fairly straightforward in the way it interacts. Let's go ahead and do a quick example of material usage.
Actually, before we start into the next piece here, on the approvals, I think you're saying that for timesheets, if there were, say I was a manager and I had 1,000 timesheets to approve, then I would actually go in and set up the agent using human language that would create rules inside of the agent. And whenever my employees would submit their timesheets submit them, it's going to get compared to those sets of rules. And then based upon those rules, the agent will then could it auto post those if it didn't violate any of the rules?
So there's two modes in which we can operate, either classify and auto approve. In the classify and auto approve mode, as you sort of alluded to, any submission which is marked as ready for approval will immediately be approved. Automatically in the system without any needed action by the project manager.
So if I chose the classify and auto approve option, then I would only be approving those that failed one of the rules. Is that accurate?
No, that passed all of the rules.
Oh, that passed all the rules. Got it. So if it would auto post if it passed all the rules, but if it failed any of the rules, then it would show me that these are the 10 that failed and why they failed, and then I could look at them individually and then make decisions based upon that.
Yeah, and we expect that sometimes the agent will flag something because it violates a rule, but the project manager will look at that and say, oh, that's fine for this specific scenario. It doesn't need to be rejected. Other times that's going to return to the submitter with the note of, hey, you violated this rule, get them to fix the submission and resubmit.
Got it. So I would see that as a huge time savings then for a manager. Now, I know we're on a PC doing this, but can they also do these approvals from a mobile app or an iPhone or some kind of other device?
We do not have a mobile app for approvals set up. We do have a team member mobile app where you could submit time and submit entries. Not for approvals. Certainly could build a custom, Power Platform app which does process approvals, but not something that we have built.
Got it. Could it actually be routed through Teams like other flows that we set up so that could be approved through Teams, or are you actually in the project operations application?
The way it is set up out of the box is in the project operations system. However, you can build a integration to Teams where it'll send the approver like adaptive card that says you have X number of approvals, and even could look at the approvals agent outputs and say you have this many that are ready for approval. Do you want to approve them all? Yes. You have this many that are needing review. Do you want to reject them and send the reason why they were rejected based on the agent's decision? So as you can see, when I added the contract into the project, it now has a cost and a sales price associated with it. So I no longer have a revenue time of 0 and time logged is non-billable. So we can see here that this one was marked as ready for approval because it met all of the rules that were laid out in that policy document that we described. I can show you another example of, there's a lot of other ways to automate this process. I could set up a rules engine that checks for similar things. One of the things that doing this using generative AI allows us to do is analyze written language. So for example, if I were to have a rule that said any spelling or grammar mistakes in my external comments should be flagged, because again, external comments are going to the customer. I don't want to seem unintelligible. I don't want to seem like I'm not doing what I'm doing. So for example, if I just put some gibberish in the external comments and submit that, then when the agent sees it, based on the rule of time entries that were submitted with comments having spelling or grammar mistakes, that's going to get flagged. And what we're going to see when we come back here is that it's okay. So as you can see, this submission that I put with the gibberish in for comments was now flagged as needs review because violated policy 9 time entry comments containing spelling or grammar mistakes. So that's a really exciting capability that can't really be replicated by more traditional paths of automation. Additionally, when we compare this agent to sort of more traditional rules engine-based automations, in those systems, the lack of flexibility. If I want to change rules, if I want to have rules that apply to only certain projects, only certain people even, there's a lot of development work to go in and make sure my rules engine has the tools to support that. Whereas here, we're just changing a natural language document to update it to whatever rule we want. Now, the biggest limitation with that is that what we're sending to the agent is a set of data that we compile. We've made decisions about what we think are important to make an approvals decision, and we've compiled all of that data. And on our Learn website, there's a list of everything that's compiled and sent to the agent. The good news is that we do have support for adding custom information to that set of rules. So for example, in my environment here, which you may have noticed, I have a custom field on the time tree called threshold value. So what I'm going to do real quick is I'm going to modify my policy document. So I'm going to add a rule for time entries with a threshold value of less than 100 should be rejected. Now I'm going to close this and come back here, and I'm going to upload this exact same policy document that I have since modified. Which now includes that rule. So now I will submit another one, and we're going to put a threshold value of 99 on here. And I will do one more with a threshold value of 100. And then I will submit both of these. And we'll run our trigger flow again. And what we'll end up seeing is that the one with a submission of 99 will be marked as needs review, and the one with a value of 100 for the threshold value will be marked as ready for approval. But again, that's a completely custom field that I added to my environment that is not out of the box. And then I made some small edits to the Power Automate flow, which triggers the process to make sure that data is captured and sent to the agent. So if you think there's out-of-the-box data that you want to be able to make approvals decisions on that we aren't sending, you can certainly modify the trigger flow and add it to that. Or like in this scenario, if you have custom data that doesn't exist in the out-of-the-box version, you can go ahead and add that so that the agent will be able to make decisions based on those fields as well.
That's really powerful. So it really allows you to customize it based upon your business needs, and it can,
exactly.
And it looks like you can have pretty much as many rules as you want, Is there a limit on the number of rules you can have, or?
There are some upper limits to the size of the document that, the size of the information that Copilot Studio can handle, but we're talking very, very large.
Nice.
So several pages is fine of rules. Now, if you have a million rules, you might run into some issues, but
Sure.
I hope most businesses don't have a million rules for approvals. That's really going to take a long time. And as you can see here, we've got the one which I submitted with a threshold value less than 100. As it says here, the value 99 was marked as needs review. And then the other entry, which I submitted with the threshold value at 100, was marked as ready for approval.
That's really cool.
And then lastly, I'm going to go ahead and submit an expense report. Many people will do their expenses in F&O. I'm doing this within Dataverse, and the agent only acts on submissions through Dataverse. Now, you could certainly set up the process to send data over from F&O back to Dataverse, but that will require some integration as well. By default, it's only going to work on Dataverse submissions. So say, for example, I'm going to a conference, $1,500, quantity of 1. I will then go ahead and submit this. And then when we run, so as you can see here, the expense report was classified by the agent. It did violate one of the policies because I did not upload a receipt in my example expense report, but all the other ones were passed. So it was marked as needs review, and then the project manager can make a decision whether a receipt is needed for this type of expense or not, and then make an approval decision based on that. Additionally, these policy documents that I referenced are currently only available to be uploaded at the organization level. So there's one policy document for time, one for expense, and one for material that you upload in this parameters page, which I have shown here. However, in the future, what we plan to implement is the ability to overwrite this policy document at the project level. So I'll upload my org-wide policy document for time entries, but then say I have a project with a government client and they have different rules of I have to submit comments in this format, or I have to make sure hours are tracked in this way. I can update my policy document for that project and that project only.
That's really nice.
And then lastly, I will submit a material usage. So material usage in project operations is usually equipment. For example, we're doing this warehouse project. Perhaps I have to install a robotic arm. So that robotic arm will be used, and I have to pay for it, obviously, and it is not cheap. So here we go. It's $11,000 robotic arm. So again, it's very important that we're getting these decisions correct the first time, so we don't have to go through that lengthy process of correction. This is my draft one. I will submit it and run the trigger flow. And now we're going to be using the material policy, as you can see here. So again, a similar set of rules. We come here to approvals agent and go to materials reviewed by agent. Here, the agent has now classified the material entry, and as I had alluded to before, because I didn't provide a description of what the material was used for, it was flagged for policy number 5 that I was missing this criteria. So I am going to go back to these time entries real quick, and what we'll see is I have these 2 that are ready for approval. So me as a project manager, I can come right here from this same menu. I don't have to go back to our normal approvals menu, and I can click approve. And now this has been processed. We'll come back here to our actuals view, and what we'll see is that we now have these transactions that I approved with cost and unbilled sales actuals associated with them because I now have a contract on it.
So Angelo, this is really interesting on how the system allows you to take human language, upload it into project operations for timesheets, expenses, and material consumption. And it seems like Microsoft is really moving away from being very technical with these kinds of things where a developer or some technical expert would have to do this, and really pushing it down so that a more of an average user can do that. So as we're looking at this, what kind of permissions does a person need to actually be able to upload those rules?
Yeah, so the rule uploading itself, they need to have access to our project parameters menu, project parameters entity, which is our settings entity. Usually that's an administrator task.
Got it.
This whole settings area and this menu is meant for administrators, and in our out of the box rules, only those that are marked as administrators will have access to this. The agent itself, as part of the setup process, has a user behind it. That user needs to have access to do the approval process and to edit those records. We created a security role that was created for the purpose of being that user and giving that background user that the agent will act as the correct permissions so that it can do the process of making updates to the records that were submitted to add the review status and review reason, as well as processing the approvals if you have the auto approve setting turned on.
That's fantastic. So one of the things I would like to tell our audience today, if you're using project operations, go give it a try, because I think you will see that it will drastically streamline your processes, and your managers will thank you because they don't have to go through and manually approve all of the timesheets, expenses, and so on. And it'll also tell them why they failed or what pieces of information are missing. So as you're going through the process, I hope you'll reach out to me. I'm a director at RSM. RSM is one of the largest Microsoft partners, and we work across the entire Microsoft stack. So whether you're using D365 Finance and Supply Chain, Project Operations, Power BI, AI agents, all of that, RSM has resources to help you. So I hope you reach out to me. And Angelo, it looks like Microsoft is continuing to invest in the Microsoft product for the approval process, as you mentioned. They're going to be doing some future enhancements. So is there anything else, Angelo, that you would like to share with us today before we wrap it up?
Yeah, I would say the only other feature enhancement that I'd like to highlight is the ability to filter out projects. I may want to turn the approval agent on, but only for certain types of projects. Maybe the volume is too high and I don't want to go through that much usage. So another thing we're going to introduce in the near future is the ability to turn it on and off at the project level instead of at the organization level.
That's fantastic. So again, Microsoft is making efforts to try to streamline the process and also reduce the cost. So instead of having to turn it on for everything, you could actually be very selective at what projects you turn this on for. So, and again, if you're in the Microsoft community, tell us what you think and give us some feedback on how we can make the product better. And we look forward to hearing from you on how it's actually adding value and streamlining your processes. So until next time, keep your head in the clouds and keep working wise.